Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. My name is Georgia Graves, and I have the proud privilege for many years to co-chair with John Center the Aviation and Airport Activities Committee, which is under Committee for Dulles. To give you a little background on the Committee for Dulles, for those who may not know about us, the Committee for Dulles was founded in 1966 and is the oldest member-sponsored organization promoting Dulles Airport. As Dulles continued to expand over the years since 1966, the work of CFD became increasingly more significant. The committee has played an active role in fostering and promoting Dulles as dramatic changes occurred at the airport. We continue today to focus our energies towards maintaining Dulles Airport as a major economic engine for the region and the Commonwealth. The Aviation Airport Activities Group is within Committee for Dulles. We provide a vehicle for the Committee for Dulles members to engage in a smaller group environment with staff and executives from the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, representatives from airlines and other airline-related organizations and businesses. The Aviation Airport Activities Committee works to keep the Committee for Dulles up to date on changes at the airport and issues that impact passengers, airline services, cargo, security, and the like. We have all kinds of incredible events occur. We do many tours, such as a fuel farm tour. We worked with the Udvar Hazy Center for special tours there. We've had wonderful tours of the A380, airline first class lounges, the Dulles canine presentations, and the like. We're very pleased to be with a number of key players on our committee, including Logan Antigone, Jim Bonfield, Dick Datos, Brendan Ferris, Dave Kirby, Paige Croner, Howard Lancet, Sheila Ohms, the Mayor of Herndon, Marcia Senek, and Sydney Woods. And we are very pleased today on this very special occasion to have the recipient of the Tower of Dulles Award representing TSA, Scott Johnson. Scott Johnson has been with TSA since 2005, and in July of 2013, he became the Federal Securities Director at Washington Dulles International Airport and is currently the interim Federal Securities Director also at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Previously serving as a Regional Director for Region 6, Director of Field Operations for Office of Security Operations, and Acting Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Office of Security Operations. Previous to TSA, Mr. Johnson served for 29 years in the United States Navy. During his tenure, he held a series of positions that included Commanding Officer, Naval Air Force Station, Key West, Florida, Operations Officer for the USS Theodore Roosevelt, Senior Navy Liaison for the 5th Allied Tactical Air Force, Europe, and Professor of Naval Science, Vanderbilt University. With great pride and pleasure that I welcome Mr. Johnson and turn the floor over to him. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgia. Thanks for the kind introduction. And by the way, thank you everybody for the Tower of Dulles Award. It's still talked about within my team here as a great honor that we received from the committee. Truly appreciate it. It's funny when you read my bio, I'm surprised that Keith Merlin didn't choke when you said Commanding Officer of Key West, Florida. One of the brutal tours that I had in the Navy for sure. And then as I look out, I'm looking out my window right now at Dulles, which is obviously one of the best views going. Jack, I didn't know you were a Hokie fan. My granddaughter is going through Virginia Tech. My wife graduated from the vet school down there, and my daughter graduated from Virginia Tech. So we lived there for quite a while. And sometimes, Keith, I'd much rather be up on Lake Champlain right now, to be honest with you, doing a little ice fishing. I'm going to share my screen. I have some slides. And before I get into it, I just want to talk, in a typical brief that I would give, I talk about people, process, and technologies. But things changed all of a sudden. I think in the last couple months for me as a Federal Security Director at Dulles and interim down there at DCA. And they changed with COVID, they changed with inauguration, and they changed with the protests we had down there in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to kind of concentrate a little bit on that. And it's going to be a little different presentation. Let me call up my slides here if I can, and we'll get this going. share this. All right. Hopefully everybody can see my slide.
Yeah.
And we'll go to the first one. Maybe we'll go to the first one. So what I'm going to talk about, just some quick facts on IAD Dulles TSA, our security approach. And like I said, after last February, March, COVID has really driven a lot of the things we do. So I need to talk about COVID and how it's affected us and what we've done at the airport to help protect my workforce and also the traveling public. We're going to talk about security in the world of protest and inauguration. Some new technology that's very, very brief, but it's important technology, especially for security. I want to talk a little bit about vaccines, which might drive how we do future passenger loads here at Dulles, and what's next for all of us. First, quick facts. Georgia, you talked about different tours of that you've had within Dulles. I offer anytime, if anybody wants a tour of our checkpoints, our bag rooms, some of that new technology, how it works, please just reach out to me or Eric being my deputy, Eric Chin, AFSD for screening. We're all been here a long time. We all know the airport for TSA side pretty well. And I think we'd love to give a tour. So put that in your calendar for possible tours for TSA. We have 5 checkpoints. And the reason why I always say this is because a lot of airports don't have what we have here at Dulles. We have an employee lane where we can screen employees associated with the concessions, with the airlines, separate from passengers. We have the pre-check. Again, a lot of airports do not have a separate pre-check area. We have 6 lanes up there of just pre-check. And if you're not a pre-check member, even though travel right now is pretty low, please sign up for pre-check. We have the 2 mezzanines that have been around for now a long time. And we have a federal inspection station that helps out United in their transfer of passengers from international to domestic flights. About a total of 37 lanes. So the average daily snapshot, Mike talked about this when he was on his last as the director out here at Dulles. Geez, average last year in 2019 was 27,200 a day. Since COVID, it's 8,000. Baggage, 22,000 bags are screened through the machines in 2019. Now we're doing about 6,500. Annual passengers in 2019, we did 10 million. About 2020, we did 3 million. And not really sure where we're going to go with 2021, and I'll discuss that at the end as we have some questions. Just to break it down a little bit and what it looks like. Different mezzanines. I think the big key is the bottom. December of 2020. This past year, we only did 261,000 for the month of December. December before that, we did 867,000. That's a decline of 70,000. That's huge. No matter how you look at it, that's for us as our job to screen people. Mission has never changed. We still have to screen and provide the security, but we have an awful lot of officers to do that, and an awful lot of officers just looking for stuff to do. So the more we can get more passengers, the better. In fact, and I know Dick is probably just as surprised as I am, Dulles is doing about 1,500 to 2,500 a day more than DCA is. And just shows you the impact of international that we have flying right now and the domestic. When Dick and I, when COVID first started, Dick said DCA will come back quick because of business travelers, and it's not coming back quite as fast as we expected. Baggage wise, I mean, this number to me is stunning. We're in November, which is one of our biggest months for bags with Thanksgiving and people moving Thanksgiving goods around. This past November, we only did 50,000 bags. The November before, we did 685,000. It's a stunning decline, and we're not alone. Other airports out there are about the same as we are, somewhere in the 70% reduction from 2019. Denver has, all through COVID, has done very well for some reason, maybe 50% reduction. Dallas, Fort Worth, maybe 50% reduction, and they're continuing that all through the pandemic. But most airports, JFK, about 85% down. Boston, we actually beat Boston one day, which is huge for us, and we beat them in passenger loads. So they're down quite a lot. So it's just nationwide, not necessarily Dulles. Our security approach hasn't changed. I probably showed this slide a couple of years ago when I briefed the committee for Dulles. We're still focused on the mission, which is to provide great security for the passengers flying through our airport. How do we do that? We do it with intel. Make sure that we are an intel-driven organization. So if I get good, actionable intelligence, which we had over the last couple of weeks, and I'll talk about that, we can change some of our procedures to provide even better security. Or random, flexible workforce. With the reduction in passenger loads, we have an opportunity now to really train a lot. So we're getting caught up on an awful lot of training, and especially on the new technology and new processes that are in place. And the one thing I'm really kind of proud of with TSA Dulles is we engage stakeholders and the traveling public. We're not shy about reaching out to everybody that's associated with Dulles, making sure they're included in everything that we're doing. And we also tend to provide excellent customer service. Do we have the one-offs? Absolutely. We just had one the other day up at BWI, and I haven't heard anything yet. They're supposed to be flying out of here at Dulles today, but I refused to wear their mask. And they got into a big argument up at BWI, and they said, fine, I'll just fly out of Dulles. Great. I want to give them somewhere else, but they'll probably be here. And but we do provide excellent customer service. So COVID hit. I kind of pat the TSA MWA team on the back when it comes to the initial response to COVID. My team here of senior leaders, and we probably have 5 or 6 on my team that are my trusted advisors. As soon as we started hearing about this COVID over in China, knowing that flights from China were heading this way, we had a meeting in the office here, and we talked about what we can do, how we can protect the workforce, how we can protect the traveling public. And then Eric Bean hosted, Eric Bean's the deputy out here, Eric Bean hosted a weekly call with all the stakeholders, Dictatos, CBP, Mike Stewart and his team of ops, my team. We're all on that call to talk about COVID and how it's going to impact passengers and what we're going to do to make sure that the area is safe. But some things that TSA has done, and you can see them right there. Masks, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on another slide, but masks are mandatory at the airport. Is it enforceable? It's very tough to enforce if people don't want to wear them. And we also require them at the checkpoints, and we provide masks to passengers if they don't have them. Before we touch any passenger for a pat down, if they don't have a mask on, we offer them a mask. If they don't put a mask on, the current process is to still screen that individual. I think that's going to change, and I'll talk about it. Social distancing, obviously CDC guidelines, 6 feet away. MWA did a great job of putting the big dots all over the airport that says, please stay 6 feet away. I always have to laugh at this though, because they stay 6 feet away in the queue lines and they come into our checkpoint. We try to keep them 6 feet apart, and then they go on a flight and they're all sitting next to each other within a foot. So social distancing is great around the airport here, and I think we're doing a good job. Our officers, you can see up at the top left, the one picture of the officers squirting alcohol on the search table. We were doing that on our own We got an awful lot of different kind of cleansers that we were using. And then TSA gave us money to get a contract. So we actually have a contractor that comes in, cleans the stainless steel tables, all the bins. And we're not just talking, let's clean the every now and then. They're out there every hour cleaning the bins, cleaning the tables, cleaning the checkpoint, cleaning the bag rooms. So it's a great contract for us. It gives our officers a little confidence that they're coming to a workplace that's virus free. You can see acrylic barriers are up just about nationwide now, and the different pictures there all have the acrylic barriers around. It started with the travel document checker, the down on the bottom right side, started with putting a barrier around that individual because that was the closest we come to just about every passenger. So we put those barriers up. We do them at the search tables. We do them at the travel document station. Any place that we're going to have direct contact with passengers, we're going to have some kind of acrylic barrier. Again, protects us and protects the passengers as well. SOP changes, standard operating procedure for us. There's a couple things that happened. We try to stay touchless. And so when you walk up to the travel document station, you're going to put your boarding pass on the scanner by yourself. You're going to put in your ID your ID into a checker. Bottom left has the setup. You're going to put the ID in there yourself. And not all checkpoints have it, but it's also going to take your picture and compare your picture to the ID. All those touchless processes are in place just to keep us away from passengers and keep passengers safe and us safe also. There's one thing down at the bottom there, a DMB Do Not Board initiative. We have CDC tracks individuals that have COVID, and airlines also track individuals that have either caused some problems on the airplane or have tested positive somewhere along the line and they know about it. They'll make sure that that individual does not get on the airplane. So the bottom line on all this, if you want to go fly, I think the perfect time to go fly is now. The airplanes are cleaned. The checkpoints are clean. The airport is keeping everybody away from each other. And I really do. I'd go fly tomorrow if I had a spot to go to. My wife flies every other week to Orlando and back. And we're having no problems so far. So that's a knock wood if you heard me knock wood. Okay, so next thing, protest and inauguration. I wouldn't have even put this in a couple weeks ago, but it drove what we did for a couple weeks here. And so that's why I thought it was important. First, communication. You know, Mike Stewart and I, Dick Tatos, CVP, all of us have a very, very good relationship that we can just pick up the phone and start talking about different things. So when the protest started, we realized that these two airports, DCA and Dulles, were probably going to be the center for a lot of protesters traveling in and out. So we started talking, what are we going to do to protect the passengers? What are we going to do to protect ourselves? So we started coordinating different law enforcement assets. We had not just MWA, but I saw Loudoun County Sheriff out here. I saw Arlington Police down in DCA. We had an awful lot of federal air marshals walking around. We brought in canine units from Philadelphia and other airports to help support as a deterrent. We had screeners come in from other airports to help us because we really did feel that it was kind of a powder keg if we weren't careful. That with these, especially with the protesters, if they're in an environment where the federal law enforcement was, that they'd try to make a scene. Did it happen? Well, if you take a look at Twitter with Lindsey Graham down at DCA, I saw the closed circuit television of it, a very small or a small event was Lindsey Graham walking in with 2 armed guards undercover. He just leaned up against a post and started looking at his email. Nothing about it. Everything was very calm. And all of a sudden, somebody went by and said, "Traitor." And once they said "traitor," all these other people just jumped in on it. And he had to be escorted out with, I'd say, probably 5 or 6 armed guards escorting him out of DCA airport. That's how rapidly it escalated, but it's also how rapidly the law enforcement were there to protect everybody. So it was kind of a dicey time during the protests. Everybody was on a little bit of a heightened, we call it POHA, period of heightened awareness. So we were in a POHA period. Everybody had their feelers out. Intel was sharp. We were getting constant updates on what was transpiring between different individuals in the protests, different militia, what they had planned, and we could nip it in the bud before it even started at the airports. Again, passengers were safe the entire time. MWA PD was outstanding, along with all other federal and local law enforcement that helped out. We always say, though, on all this, if you see something, say something. And we did have passengers that would help us out with saying, that individual looks pretty suspicious over there. Why don't you take a look at him? And we would. So it was a unique period for Dulles and DCA for sure, and BWI. I don't want to cut them out because they were involved in a lot of it. I talked about the communication up on the one there, communication and coordination. Come down here in the partnerships. You can't help but look at everything, especially with security, all the different agencies involved in Dulles. MWA obviously is a given and TSA is a given, but you go through Customs, ICE, FBI, Secret Service is out here. I put in Capitol Police in red. And the reason why I did that is because they are becoming a key player in the law enforcement of individuals, VIPs traveling through the airports. So congressmen and senators on a daily basis would come and go through Dulles and DCA. Now all of a sudden they become verbal or physical targets as they travel. So Capitol Police is providing more and more armed security for those individuals. And if they can't, the NYPD does. And if they can't, we try to get the federal air marshals to provide armed security. So I know it's a different time we're going through right now, and probably this too shall pass. But for now, Capitol Police, NYPD, and federal air marshals are very engaged in the transport back and forth of our congressmen and senators. Technology, I've talked about a lot of this before in different venues, but I'm going to highlight 2, and they're in red there. CT, which is up in the top left, you see the officer standing there, and next to her is a machine. That's the CT, computed tomography machine. It's just like a CAT scan. It's up at the checkpoints. You put a bag in there, and it gives us the opportunity to move that bag in a 3D environment that we can look through it. As this technology gets better and better, we're going to be able to basically look inside of a bag and determine what's in there without having to open it. If I can look in and see a laptop, and I can maneuver that laptop 3D virtually and ensure that there's nothing attached to that laptop, nothing, it hasn't been tampered with, I can probably clear that laptop in the machine. Or maybe even liquids. If I see liquids in there and rotate them around and look at them, we might be able to clear them. The other thing in red, the CAT and CAT2, credential authentication technology, and the same thing in 2. They're basically a machine where you put your ID in. It takes a quick scan of the ID, and it tells my officer on the checkpoint your name, what flight you're on, the time of the flight, make sure it's Dulles Airport, and if the ID is good or not. That's credential authentication technology. I love it. It works great. It's all our document stations now. The CAT2 puts a little bit of a biometric associated with it. It takes that ID, looks at the picture, and then as you stand there, it takes a picture, almost like a iPad, opening it up with facial recognition, or an iPhone, takes a look at it, compares the picture of the individual on the ID to the person standing in front of the machine, and then it gives a green light. So now we know that the person that's there, it's a good ID, it matches the person standing in front of us. We don't have to guess if the individual is the person on the ID or not. Final thing on the bottom there is explosive detection system, SOP. When COVID first started, they said, how are we going to get rid of touching so many of our bags out in the checked baggage area? And believe it, and Dulles came up with a concept, and I absolutely love it. Basically says, hey, our officers are so good when they're looking at these checked bags going through a machine. They know if a laptop's been tampered with. They know if there's a gun in that bag. And they can clear a lot of things just on a screen instead of opening. We put that up to headquarters, and they adopted what we were doing out here, and now it's nationwide. So it's we open up less bags. We trust our officers a little bit more that they can analyze what's inside that bag, and I think it really it helps us because passengers don't get mad that we opened up their bags and fooled around with their stuff inside. So I think that's a good news story. Last thing I want to talk to, and somebody said this might have been dictatos at one point, but I doubt it. Vaccines. So vaccines, this is important for me. The faster we can get vaccines to the workforce, the better. There's 3 avenues we're working right now. I know that Mike Stewart, Paul Malandrino at the 2 airports are working very hard to try to get their frontline off their personnel vaccines, so people coming on to Dulles can look and say, hey, you know, what a great news story that the workforce is vaccinated. We're trying to piggyback on that, and I know they're working to make that happen. We're also working with TSA headquarters that's possibly going to get us some vaccines within 2 weeks for the workforce at both airports. And then the final is Department of Homeland Security has made a deal with Veteran Affairs at their hospitals to issue vaccines for TSA. But it's also for ICE, CBP, and an awful lot of other agencies. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm not banking on those. I'm banking more on local hospitals giving us our vaccines. Excuse me. Okay, what's next? Low passenger volume to start. We are very low right now, I gotta admit. Spring break's coming, maybe 15,000. We hope, our fingers are crossed. I would have bet we would have hit 15,000 at Christmas, but we didn't. Summertime, 15 to 20,000. That would be ideal. We're ready for it. We're starting to hire. You can see that in my priorities down at the bottom right. We're hiring to meet the demands of 15 or 20,000. If COVID wouldn't have hit, we probably would have been thinking 35 to 40,000 for this year. COVID, I already talked about the vaccines. We're still maintaining operations. I know that the president just changed some of the international flight requirements. International flights are keeping us alive right now at Dulles. We're getting more and more of them signing back on. So if we can get all those passengers signing up to start flying internationally, and we should do very well to make that 15 or 20,000. New administration, we will see very soon that masks will be required on planes. You've already seen it in an executive directive that went out from the president. We as TSA will enforce that at the checkpoints, and basically passengers will not fly unless they go through the TSA checkpoint with a mask on. Temperature checks are in red there because we just might end up doing temperature checks. That's in the works. So if you come up, you put your ID in, next thing you know, you get a temperature check if it's all good. We're not medical doctors, that's for sure. So there's a lot to be, we have to get through for that, but that's a possibility. And our budget right now, so far, I'm doing good on budget wise. And I think TSA in general, we're still buying technologies, new technologies, and yeah, budget's not an issue. Finally, my priorities, always keep passengers safe. We are hiring a lot. So if you have anybody that wants to look for a job, please have them go to USA Jobs and sign up for TSA. I talked earlier about training, and we have a strategic plan. When everything comes back to normal in 2022 or 23 or 24, we're ready to meet the demand. So that's all I have. Scott York was giving me the time, saying it's time to get off. So I think I better jump on off now, but thank you very much. Thanks for all your support. And I'm here. I got my team is sitting around listening to me talk, and they're the experts. So if you have any tough questions, I'll make sure that they can help answer it. So that's all I have. Thanks, Scott, for this opportunity. And Georgia, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Scott, thank you so much. That was fantastic. We really appreciate it. And we're very pleased now to have Jack Vega, our president of Committee for Dallas, handle our Q&A section. Jack?
Well, Scott, thank you again. For Q&A, I guess this Verizon outage limited our participation. We had about 54 people participating, and we had probably about 24 at one point as I was monitoring our activity. But I'll just open up the floor if you don't mind unmuting yourself and identifying yourself and ask a question if you have one for Mr. Johnson. Tim, go ahead.
Great presentation, thank you. You had mentioned TSA PreCheck and encouraging everyone to get that, and I've had it for years. But I'm curious what the, I guess, failure rate is for TSA PreCheck for background checks. Is that data available? I'm just curious if people get denied.
I don't know what the rate is for failure. I think, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate what that is. We have a contractor that does all that for us, and those numbers are probably out there. I could get it for you if you needed it. But the way I think of it, I believe it's about 15 or 16 million people nationwide right now have PreCheck, which is low in the big scheme of life. Before COVID, Dulles was probably number 4 or 5 in the nation for signing people up at our kiosk upstairs. Since COVID hit, it's very, very low. Businesses just aren't signing up for PreCheck the way they were. But I think that 15 or 16 million is going to be probably steady for many moons. Let's put it that way.
So what percentage do you think that is of your normal pre-COVID? What percent are PreCheck?
So we do, pre-COVID, we would do on a 30,000 day, we might do 6,000 through the PreCheck lanes. And that's booking. I mean, that's 6 lanes. And we try to put 250, what is it? 35%? More like 35 or 40%. Yeah, 35 or 40% is what we were doing. We try to put 200 plus through a lane at PreCheck. That's why people are PreCheck. It gives us the opportunity to put people through rapidly. A trusted traveler. The other lanes right now, 120, 130 people per hour going through is a lot slower. So, but yeah, Eric Chin just said about 35% is what we're doing. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, Scott, every time I hear your biography and talk about you being the commander of Key West, I can tell you I tried to fly into Key West so many times and the Navy would always reject us, saying the ramp was saturated. We had to go to someplace else like Orlando.
I would never do that to an Air Force. Never do that.
I know. I hear you. I wish you were there when I was trying to get in. Hey, I wanted to ask you on the COVID. You know, you guys have done great. If I've walked through and looked, I haven't flown since it, but walking through and look at everything that you and Mike have done to, you know, protect your employees. With your close, you know, as close as your employees get to the public in that, how has your experience been with COVID within your ranks?
So we had when we first started, I bet in the first 4 months, 5 months, we had maybe 8 cases. We're having about a case a day. I hate to say that, since maybe Thanksgiving. I'm getting a constant phone call saying, "Hey, we had another positive," and it's all from out of the area. It's not within the contact tracing is outside of the work environment, which is a good thing. So a lot of times when people feel sick, they stay home. We give them 14 days to stay home if they're positive. They don't come in. Mike will know this. If I get a positive, we'll ask for cleaning, deep cleaning, although now we have the contract in place, so we don't need that anymore. I was looking at CBP the other day. Dan has done really, really well with his workforce not getting COVID, and all of a sudden he's snake bit. We're seeing more and more cases over there. So as people outside of the workplace get a little bit more casual, they're starting to get COVID. The workforce in general, extremely positive. There's some obviously that are nervous about it, but most of the workforce here understands the risks, keeps the social distancing, gloves on, masks on. We wear visors up there if you have direct contact with passengers, and that really helps out for us. So yeah, I would probably say in the last week or two, we've had 8, maybe 8 cases.
Scott, I'll ask a question myself. How is employee morale or turnover? How are those things being tracked, or what's the impact on your staff?
Yep, we track that very close. We were not allowed to hire for the first probably 3 months of the fiscal year, which starts in October for us. We lose about 5 people every 2 weeks. That's how I judge it. Our headquarters has given me an allocation for officers that almost equals what we had in 2019. So that's why I'm saying we're hiring. We're starting to hire right in the beginning of February. We'll bring in 10, 15 a class every 2 weeks, and we'll start bringing people in. The morale-wise, if people leave Dulles, they're either leaving to get a better paying job or to another airport to get near mom or dad or whatever. Very seldom do people leave because they don't like it here, or they might leave because they get fired. That's a different story. But most of the time it's to get a better job, more paying job, better paying job, not more paying, better paying.
Mike, Hajun, did you want to ask a question? Tim, go ahead.
Do we have time?
Nothing.
Or?
No,
Good.
Nothing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just thank you, John.
Another TSA question. I flew to Ireland, I don't know, 3 years ago, and learned that Aer Lingus didn't, not TSA, pre-check, TSA pre-check question. Aer Lingus didn't participate. That was the first I had learned that it was airline specific.
You bet. And
is that because they pay for it, or?
Yeah. They have, I forget, I always heard the number 25 million. I don't think that's it, but it cost a lot of money to change all their tickets and the algorithms and everything associated with that, and how to tap into secure flight with pre-check to put it on their ticket. Basically, we get an awful lot of complaints from passengers. Hey, I paid for pre-check and it's not even on my ticket. First thing I say to them is, did you put it into your profile in that airline? Oh, I didn't think I had to do that. You have to put it in the profile, first of all, and every airline has to play. I bet you money Aer Lingus does now. Most airlines do, but you can go on to tsa.gov and find out what your airlines.
Right. Well, do they pay a fee to be part of the program?
I don't think an annual fee, no, but it has to be to in fact, I know they don't. It has to be put into their system so the boarding pass says pre-check on it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Paige. Welcome back. Good to see you. Go ahead.
Hey, Jack, good to see you as well. Mr. Johnson, thank you for your time. This has been extremely informative. I have recently joined the AAAE, and we are working on a program called ACT, which is Airports with Consumer Trust, and trying to get people back into the air. I was curious if you could elaborate a little bit more about the DNB initiative that you spoke about briefly in your presentation, and give a little bit more information how that interacts with the CDC and the like.
Yeah, so I put that in there because it's important. It's a couple things. It's COVID. It's also the protests that went on during that time. So airlines are able to identify individuals that they feel will disrupt the flight. How do they do that? It's very easy. Paige, I bet you once every 2 days, I get a text says flight diverting from Dulles to Dallas going into Atlanta because of a disruptive passenger. The passengers are usually drunk. There are some that don't want to wear masks, so they'll actually divert now to get that person off the flight. Once those people do that stuff, that airline's going to say, "No, you're not flying with us again. You're not going to board that. You're not going to board us for a year," or whatever it is. CDC will work with TSA to say, we are aware of an individual that is leaving a hospital or whatever that has COVID or any other communicable disease, and let TSA know through CDC that that individual should not board that flight. So we'll get a notification saying, do not board this individual. Their boarding pass will be inhibited, so they can't even come in to pass the TDC. It'll be stopped right there. It'll be stopped up at the ticket counter, to be honest with you. And then they can ask the question, why am I prohibited from flying? And they'll find out. So, and sometimes it sneaks by us. So there'll be, the other day we had a flight, an individual was coming inbound, and it was too late. He got on a flight, I think it was Atlanta, and he had COVID. There you go, had COVID, and everybody knew about it. And they tried to get it in time, but it didn't. So, yeah.
Thank you. To elaborate a little bit, and I'd be curious to get Keith Merlin's experience being where his past is. Do you think there's a way that we can stop a passenger from even entering the terminal building if they have COVID that have been identified, and say on the DNB list before they even get to the terminal?
Yeah, I don't think at that point you can. The only thing that I feel that's going to be maybe enforceable is you need a mask coming through those front doors of Dulles or DCA or whatever. You need a mask on. It's very tough to enforce. Look at all the doors, entranceways coming. You can't have police at every door. You can't hire people to hand out masks, but we can do it at the checkpoint. And we can say, if you don't have a mask going past the travel document, you're not flying today. Then it's going to be a law enforcement issue because people will be mad. There will be people that refuse to wear masks just because they refuse to wear masks. You see them around, and they'll want to fly, and they'll give us grief because of that. So,
Thank you.
All right, being cognizant of the time, I will turn it back over to Georgia. Thank you again to Scott, and thank you to TSA. Georgia?
Thank you so much. We need an update from our executive director to let us know what's going on with CFD, and then I'll close out. Scott?
Scott, you're muted.
Thank you, Georgia. I appreciate it. And I'll be very brief here. We have several events going on. Do not worry about writing down the information I give you, as I will send a follow-up email with all the details. First, this Friday, the 29th, we are holding a food drive from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is simple. We are just asking for individuals or companies to bring food to the CFD office on Friday. All food collected will be donated to Mobile Hope, located in Leesburg. They work primarily with at-risk youth children in Loudoun County. So anything you can do to stuff the CFD office would be greatly appreciated. On February 3rd at 9 a.m., there will be a Legislative and Economic Development Committee Zoom meeting to hear from Jason Stanford, Executive Director of Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance. Jason will discuss COVID-19 transportation trends, Metro, key regional projects, and the future of transportation in Northern Virginia. On February 25th at 10:30 a.m., CFD will have a sustainable infrastructure webinar with Roger Natsuhara who will talk about MWA's 2020 sustainability report. Roger serves as Senior Vice President of Engineering at MWA. Following Roger's presentation, there will be a panel discussion about sustainable infrastructure. And last but not least, now with today's winter weather, there is no better time to plan for a spring day. So on April 26th, the Committee for Dulles is holding a golf tournament at the Westfields Golf Club. And in the email, you will have a link that you can go to register at our golfing website. And finally, as executive director, I first want to thank all our members who have been very supportive of the Committee for Dulles. Your support is much appreciated, and without that support, we could not champion the growth of Washington Dulles International Airport. And I want to extend an invitation to those who are not members of the committee to become members and join this wonderful organization. And again, in the email that I will send, I will have information in there regarding how you can join as members of the committee. With that, thank you, and my thanks to you, Scott, for briefing us today. It's been very interesting. Georgia?
Thank you. Just one final note to all of you. This is the Aviation Airport Activity Subcommittee. Our goal on February the 23rd, we have a meeting the second Tuesday, the last Tuesday of every month. So on the 23rd of February, we're working towards scheduling an active shooter program. We've done it in the past, and it's usually how the MWA Police Department's Community Liaison program will offer how to respond to an active shooter seminar. You will learn what to expect from law enforcement, what you can do to protect yourself and survive this ordeal, and what needs to be done after experiencing an active shooter incident. This is very important that we spread the word. I'm sure many people will want to be involved in this program. Again, Scott will send out notice as soon as we have it absolutely confirmed. We're very grateful for everyone's participation. Those that could not get on, we'll make sure they get a copy of this. And Mr. Johnson, with the deepest appreciation, thank you for your time today and for your great presentation. We are so grateful to have TSA as part of CFD. And again, congratulations for the Tower of Dulles Award. And to everyone else, thank you so much and have a great week.